Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
One introduction. Imagine you are buying something. Maybe it is coffee or a sandwich. A person takes your payment. Then they turn a small screen towards you. This screen is a payment tablet. On the screen, you see some choices for tipping. The choices are often big numbers like 20%, 25%, or even 30%. The worker might be looking at you. Other people might be waiting behind you. This moment can feel difficult or strange. This situation is happening more and more often now. It shows how tipping is different today. In the past, tipping was usually a small amount of money given to thank someone for good service, mostly in restaurants. It was a simple thank you. Today, tipping feels more complex and is seen in many new places, not just traditional restaurants. Technology is a big reason for this change. These new payment tablets make it very easy for businesses to ask for tips. They show those suggested tip amounts clearly on the screen. Seeing these options can make people feel pressure to tip more than they planned, or even to tip when they did not expect to. This can make people feel confused about who to tip and how much. So, tipping today is not always a simple thank you for service. It involves technology, many different types of businesses asking, and can create feelings of pressure or confusion for customers. Tipping has changed a lot from what it was before. This change is an important part of how we pay for things now. This look at tipping will help us understand why it is like this today. We will learn about the history of tipping and where it started. We will see how it became common in the United States. We will explore the reasons why tipping has changed so much recently, including the role of technology and recent events. We will also look at how people feel about tipping now. Understanding the past and the present changes helps us understand this part of our daily lives. 2. Where tipping started. Tipping has a very long history. Some people believe it started many hundreds of years ago in Europe. One theory is that it began in medieval times. Rich people would give coins to poor people, perhaps to ensure safe travel or as a sign of thanks. It also became a custom in places where people ate and drank. Maybe it was a way to share some fun with the people who were serving. Later in the 1800s, the custom of tipping came to the United States. At first, many workers in places like restaurants earned a regular wage. But when some workers asked for more money and stopped working, businesses looked for cheaper labor. They hired new people, often women, and paid them less. After slavery ended, many people who were formerly enslaved looked for jobs. Some business owners hired them but did not want to pay a full wage. These owners thought that tips from customers would be enough for these workers. They presented tipping as a special chance for these workers to earn money, rather than paying them a fair wage directly. This made tipping a central part of payment for some workers in the U.S. Around the same time, the way of paying service workers in Europe started to change. Many European countries began adding a service charge to the bill instead of relying on tips from customers. But in the United States, tipping became more common and important for worker pay. For a long time, there was no specific law about how much businesses had to pay workers who received tips. The first general minimum wage law in the U.S. was passed in 1938. However, it was much later, in 1991, that the federal government created a separate, lower minimum wage for tipped employees. This amount was set at only $2.13 per hour. This low federal rate for tipped workers has not changed since 1991. The United States is quite different from many other countries regarding this rule. In most other places, businesses must pay service workers the full standard minimum wage, regardless of tips. But in the U.S., the system is different in many states. In 43 states, businesses are legally allowed to pay tipped workers less than the standard minimum wage. The idea behind this is that the tips the worker receives from customers will bring their total pay up to at least the standard minimum wage. This means that in many parts of the U.S., tips are not just a bonus for good service. They are a required part of the worker's expected income. This historical path shows how tipping in the U.S. became closely tied to wages, often allowing businesses to reduce their direct labor costs by shifting the responsibility to customers. 3. Tipping becomes more common. Over many years, the amount of money people give as tips has changed. A long time ago, tipping 10% was common. Later, maybe in the 1970s or 80s, it became more normal to tip 15%. Today, it is often 20% or more. People use a new word for this change: tipflation. This word means two things. First, it means that the percentage of the bill that people tip is often higher now. Second, it means that people are being asked to tip in many more places than before. Before, you usually only tipped in places like restaurants where someone served you at a table. Now, you see requests for tips in many different kinds of businesses. You might see a screen asking for a tip at a coffee shop when you buy a drink. You might be asked to tip when you pick up food to take home from a restaurant, even if no one served you at a table. Sometimes, people are asked to tip in other service places too. This makes some people feel confused. They are not sure who they should tip now. They also feel unsure about how much money is the right amount to give as a tip in these new situations. It feels like tipping is becoming something that is expected almost everywhere, even for quick or simple things. It is a big change from how tipping used to be. 4. The pandemic changes tipping. A few years ago, something big changed the world. This was the time of the coronavirus pandemic. During this difficult time, many people who worked in service jobs faced problems. Businesses sometimes closed and fewer customers came out. People wanted to help these workers. Because of this, people started changing how they tipped. They began to tip more often. They also started tipping in places and for services where they did not usually tip before. For example, more people were ordering food to be brought to their homes. They often tipped the person who delivered the food. Also, many people stopped eating inside restaurants. Instead, they picked up food to eat at home. People started tipping when they picked up their food, which was not common before the pandemic. Looking at how people tipped for online orders, the change was very clear. Before the pandemic, about 46% of these orders included a tip. By early 2022, this number grew to about 86%. This shows a big jump in how often people tipped for these types of services. Businesses also saw the changes happening. With fewer customers coming into stores or restaurants, businesses needed money. They saw that people were willing to tip more, especially for deliveries and takeout. So many businesses started asking for tips more often. They added options to tip when people paid, even for simple services. After the pandemic started to slow down, many people hoped things would go back to how they were before. But the changes in tipping did not go away. Businesses kept asking for tips. Customers had gotten used to tipping in new situations. The pandemic helped make asking for tips a normal thing in many more places than before. This time had a lasting effect on how people think about and give tips. 5. How technology changed tipping. New payment machines have greatly changed the way people tip. In the past, you might put some coins in a simple glass jar on the counter. But now, when you buy something, especially in places like coffee shops or small stores, you often see a screen or a tablet. This technology is used for paying, but it also makes it very easy for businesses to ask for tips. When the screen is turned to you, it usually shows you different choices for tipping. These are often suggested amounts, shown as percentages of your total cost. You might see options like 20%, 25%, or even 30%. These numbers are usually large and easy to see on the screen. Seeing these suggested amounts can create a feeling of pressure. The person who served you is often standing right there, watching the screen. Other customers might be waiting behind you in line. This public situation can make it difficult to choose a lower tip percentage or to choose no tip at all. Many people have said in surveys that they feel pressured to tip more than they normally would because they see these high suggested options on the screen. They feel that these options tell them what is the normal or expected amount to tip in that place. Several companies make these payment systems and screens. Some of the biggest ones are called Square, Toast, and Clover. These companies developed technology that made it easy for all kinds of businesses, even very small ones, to accept credit cards and also to add a tipping step. These systems offer many useful tools for businesses, but the tipping feature has had a big effect on customers. Businesses can choose which tip options to show, and they often choose high percentages to start with. The technology itself, with its easy-to-use screens and clear buttons, is designed to make tipping simple, but also to encourage higher tips. The introduction of these screens changed the action of tipping itself. Before, if you didn't put money in a tip jar, it was often just a passive thing. You simply didn't do it. Nobody might notice or care. But with the new payment screens, you have to actively make a choice. If you don't want to tip, you usually have to press a button that says "No tip" or enter a zero amount. This feels very different. It feels like you are saying no directly. This small change from a passive action to an active one has made many people feel uncomfortable and has made the decision not to tip much more visible. These modern payment technologies have played a major role in the rise of tipping requests and the increase in suggested tip amounts. By making it simple for businesses to ask and by presenting high options directly to the customer in a public setting, technology has completely changed the tipping experience for many people. It has moved tipping from a quiet gesture to a public, sometimes pressured, decision. 6. Why businesses ask for tips. Businesses choose to ask for tips for different reasons. One big reason is money. New payment systems, like the tablets you see at the counter, make it simple for businesses to ask customers for extra money. These systems show suggested tip amounts, like 20% or 25% or even 30%. When customers see these options right on the screen, it can make them feel more likely to give money, and often they give more money than they might have before. The technology makes asking for a tip very easy for the business. Companies that make these payment systems help businesses in several ways. They offer tools that make running a business easier and faster. They also help businesses collect more tips from customers. One person who manages a shop said that when he started using one of these modern systems, his shop got more tips and the tips were higher amounts. The easy-to-use screens with big buttons make it simple for customers to add a tip before they finish paying. For businesses, getting tips can also help them manage costs. In many places, workers who receive tips can legally be paid less than the normal minimum wage. Tips are expected to make up the difference in their pay. So, when customers give tips, it can help the business save money on employee wages compared to paying all workers a higher fixed wage. This allows businesses to lower their labor costs. Another reason businesses like using tipping systems is because they think it helps motivate their employees. When employees know they can receive tips based on their service, businesses believe it makes them want to work better and provide good service to customers. They feel that getting tips can encourage employees to do a good job and work harder. Using the tipping technology often has clear financial benefits for businesses. The extra money collected from tips can even help pay for the cost of the software system itself. Businesses look at the numbers and see that asking for tips brings in more income. Because of this, many business owners feel it is a smart choice to use these systems and ask customers to tip. Even large companies like Starbucks have started using tip screens in their stores to help their business. It is important to remember that it is the business that makes the choice to ask for tips. The payment systems allow businesses to turn the tipping feature on or off easily. So, when you are presented with a request for a tip on a screen, it is because the business owner decided to ask for one. During the time of the pandemic, many businesses lost customers and income. Asking for tips was one way they tried to get more money, and this practice has continued to be common even after that time. 7. How people feel about tipping now. People have different feelings about tipping today. Many customers feel annoyed because they are asked to tip so often now. It is not just in restaurants anymore. They feel pressure to give money, even for small things like picking up coffee. This pressure is stronger when businesses ask for a tip before they finish the service. It can feel strange to be asked for a tip before you even get what you paid for. Some people worry that if they do not tip well early, the service will not be good. Also, prices for many things are higher now. This is called inflation. Because of inflation, some people are tipping less than before. They feel they have less money to give as tips. This can make things difficult for workers who get most of their pay from tips. Some workers in restaurants say their tips are smaller now. They think this is because customers feel like they are already paying many other fees or higher prices that businesses add. Customers feel they are paying enough money already and do not want to add a large tip too. Many people have strong feelings about the whole idea of tipping. A large number of people, about 60%, say they want to stop tipping completely. They wish for a different system where workers are paid a good wage directly by the business. They think this would be a fairer way. How much people tip has changed a little. In 2021, more than half of customers, 56%, often tipped 20% or more at restaurants. But in 2022, this number was less, 43%. So people are a little less generous with very high tips now. The average percentage people tip at full restaurants has stayed about the same, around 19 or 20%. But because tipping is asked for everywhere, the total amount people spend on tips might be higher. Seeing screens with big suggested tip amounts, like 20 or 25 or even 30%, makes people feel they must choose one of these higher options. The screens make it easy to tip, but hard not to tip. It is harder to choose no tip on a screen when the employee is watching or others are in line. Before, you just didn't put money in a jar, which felt less difficult. Some people believe this big increase in tipping requests is not good for anyone. They feel it hurts the people who really need tips in traditional jobs because customers have less money or feel annoyed. It also makes customers unhappy. This new situation with tipping is seen by some as a problem for society that needs to change. 8. What happens next? What will happen with tipping in the future? This is a question many people are asking today. Tipping has changed a lot in recent years. It is now asked for in many different places. Will this trend continue? Will people be asked to tip for even more services? Some people wonder if they will need to tip their doctor or other professionals one day. This shows how much tipping has spread. People also ask about the amount they tip. Will tip percentages continue to increase? Years ago, 10 or 15% was common. Now, 20% or more is often suggested. If people feel pressure to tip more to seem generous, will the common tip amount keep rising? Maybe it will go up to 25 or 35% in the future. But can this continue forever? Many people think there must be a point where tipping stops growing. They feel there must be a limit to how much and how often people are asked to tip. But nobody knows exactly where this limit is. Where is the tipping point for tipping itself? Maybe the whole system will change. Some people suggest finding a different way to pay workers. If businesses paid workers a higher, clear wage, maybe tipping would not be needed so much. This could create a fairer system for everyone. What does the future of tipping mean for the people involved? For people who work and get tips, it means their income might not be stable. It depends on the customer's choices. For customers, it means they might feel more confused and pressured about paying. They might pay more money in total. The current situation is new and different. The future of tipping is not clear right now. It depends on many things. Will businesses change how they ask for tips? Will customers change how they tip? Will new rules be made? These questions are important because tipping affects many people every day. It affects how workers earn money. It affects how customers pay for things. The discussion about tipping is happening now. People are thinking about what is fair. Maybe the future will bring a new system, a system that is better for both workers and customers. But for now, the trend seems to be towards more tipping in more places and sometimes at higher percentages. We will have to wait and see what happens next. Will tipping keep going up and up, or will something happen to change the direction? This is a big question about paying for services in the future. It is a question for all of us. The next few years will likely show us more about the path of tipping.